Hello and welcome. I am Scrapperlock, and this is City of Heroes. We're with Liberty Lass, our level 30 brute, and we are on the corporate culture story arc. And I realized something when I was rewatching my videos. I forgot to change the colors of the stars on her sleeves, so they were still white in the last episode. That's not correct. They need to contrast with the costume. They should have been blue, and so we have that now. So that's all set, and now we're going to continue corporate culture. The freak show hit the Cray office last time. We don't know why they were deliberately targeting Mrs. Kellerman, but I did find out that Mass Def, the leader of the raid, often works for a freak called Saiba the Damager. And we got to go get answers from Saiba. So we're heading to Kings Row, and the reason I'm in Atlas Park is actually I was in the City Hall because I'm working on the City Hall day job. We have 52 hours of the 100 hours needed to spend logged off in City Hall to get the day job badge. I'm just sort of working. I've got a few of them, as you can see. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, about 5 left to go, and I'm just sort of slowly working on them one at a time until we get them all. Actually, I think there might be one in the Architect, but I haven't logged off in the Architect, so I guess it's not showing that progress bar, or maybe I'm wrong about that. Not really sure. At any rate, we're heading into the Freaks. We're still on +1 missions. We're really, gosh, if we just had a few more slots, which we will get some at 31, we're so close to being able to go to +2 already with this character. The only issue, we can take +2s no problem. The only issue with +2 missions is we'd see some +3s in there, and that's going to be rough, mostly just because we can't hit. We would need more of our powers to be double slotted for accuracy, and we just don't have the slots for that yet. And additionally, when they're that much higher level than you, it takes a lot more shots to take them down just because of the hit points. They have more hit points and you do less. You sort of do fewer hit points. And so that means you got to take an extra swing or two. And with 4 toggles, we've been borderline having, endurance issues. And it's interesting to me, these 4 toggles, and that's what you run in most defenses is 4 toggles. And people complained about the toggles, and I could have sworn when willpower was introduced, one of the whole ideas behind it was that you weren't supposed to need toggles. It was supposed to be more passive based. But if you look at it, I mean, there are a couple of passives, right? Fast healing, quick recovery, high pain tolerance. But I mean, they got that many passives in super reflexes and a lot of the other defenses too. So I don't know. Does anybody know the sort of the history of that? I know when they were first talking about it, the claim was that this was going to be a power set, a defensive power set where you could rely less on toggles, and people complained about the toggles, the constant endurance drain of having to keep them up all the time, and they wanted a power set that was just more inherent. It's just how your body is, basically. Kind of the way Superman is in the movies. He doesn't have glowing stuff around him. He just is invulnerable. And one of the things, of course, they did was they made it so that you can have minimal visual effects on almost any power. Our flight is that way, right? So when I hit flight, you see the glow around her. That's the toggles. Right, but if we take all the toggles off, oops, I shouldn't have done that, we're going to get attacked. You can see that there's no special effects on the flight, right? But when you, so you can do that with all of your powers, and we could make it so that the toggles don't really make us glow, although I think you always hear them if they have an audio effect, like one of the invincibility type ones is kind of like constantly ding, 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 very softly in the background. The other thing I wanted to mention is I missed this when I was looking at it. Rise of the Challenge does have a taunt listed in here. I just missed it when I was looking at it in the last episode. I saw that when I was watching the video. But yeah, you can take the visual effects off of any powers that are like these, that are toggles, and even, to some degree, you can do minimal effects on some of your primaries and stuff here, but I could have sworn that willpower was supposed to be more passive heavy and less toggle heavy, but there's still 4 toggles in it, which is as many as any defense power set I can think of. In fact, there are no click powers, right? Or are these click? I guess these are click powers at the end of the set here. But yeah, it seems like they just swapped maybe one click power for a passive rather than swapping toggles for passives. Now I know the issue, right? The passives are always supposed to be much weaker than the toggles because they cost no endurance to run. So, you know, the whole idea is there should be a cost to the power. If it's going to be really strong, there should be a bigger cost. But I also thought that somehow they had worked out the willpower so that it worked okay without using so many toggles. But, you know, I guess I was wrong. Unless it's different for brutes than it is for tankers or scrappers, I don't really know. I did willpower on a stalker once, but stalker defense sets are a little different because they have the hide ability, which means that you lose one of the other powers, or they combine some of the other powers into the to replace the one that you're missing with hide. So I think in this power set, you do keep high pain tolerance. I think you lose quick recovery. You certainly lose quick recovery in regen. Right? But it's, I guess, maybe what they did was they gave you quick recovery so that you could run the toggles without getting as tired because of the endurance recovery. I don't really know. So whoever knows, whoever was here when they were making the decisions and finalizing the power, let us know in the comments if you remember. I forgot all about that. I'm so used to running a bunch of toggles as a scrapper or a brute or whatever that I didn't really think about it, right? If you go back and look at Quintessence Lass, her energy aura, what do we got here? Just these two. Her energy aura was very toggle intensive too. And yeah, I just dealt with that, right? She had ways to absorb endurance from the guys around her, and so I just did it that way. But I'd forgotten, since I'm so used to running a lot of toggles with scrappers and stalkers and brutes, that yeah, I could have sworn that willpower was supposed to be much less toggle intensive compared to the other powers. That's obviously not true, because I don't think, at least before getting into the epic power pools, I don't think that I've ever run more than 4 toggles at a time. So we got a clue. And he says, we didn't have anything against the Kellerman chick, we were just doing a job. We were paid to kill her and then rampage the place. And so we talked to Philippa. She says, so the freaks are paid to get Mrs. Kellerman? I wonder who would want a young woman, you newlywed accountant, dead. Or more to the point, who'd want her dead badly enough to stick the freak show on her. And so according to Cyber the Damage, the freaks are supposed to be paid today by the person who wants to kill Kellerman. See if you can find out why the freaks were trying to kill her. And now we're on our way to Independence Port. Let's do it through the base. It's really weird that I got the monitor duty teleport before I actually got the monitor duty badge. I wonder why that is. So we're going to Independence Port. So guys, here's a fun one. I was talking about this with a friend of mine. And I was like, be careful what you say to your GM. So my game group and I have been playing role-playing games via Discord, Zoom, and Virtual Tabletop, mostly Foundry, VTT, since right as the pandemic started. Complete coincidence, right? We live all over the world at the time. um, three of us were living in the same state, but two of us weren't within driving distance of the other one. And then the other two people were living in like Canada and in totally different provinces on opposite sides of Canada from each other. So there wasn't any way for us as a group to play in person. And the one guy who is my colleague at work currently and was then, and he's the one who got us started on this, and he was supposed to be the original GM and then had to bail out for personal reasons. He had told me that he and his old like high school buddies were playing D&D on Zoom for years. I didn't know what Zoom was. I don't know if I'd ever heard of it. We used his Zoom account the first couple of times because none of us had one. And we started playing. We did like our session 0 in February, like before the pandemic had really hit, which was in March. Right? It was around the time of spring break, which was in March for my university. That spring break started. Things hadn't blown up completely yet. By the end of spring break, we were told we're gonna go online, and we're gonna take an extra week to. And we're fighting Cray here, by the way. We're gonna take an extra week for spring break to plan it, and then when the students come back, we're going fully online, and that was in compliance with the state um, mandates from the governor and the legislature and stuff like that. Right. So this is about a month before that we had our very first session 0. We then did another session 0 when the second Canadian guy joined us, who's friends with the first Canadian guy. And so we were already kind of doing this on Zoom before everybody started playing online, and before people had were doing everything online. And in fact, we didn't have a virtual tabletop. We started with me using PowerPoint to I made little PowerPoint slides because I was used to doing PowerPoint from teaching with the maps on them, and I had little black squares and rectangles that were blocking parts of the hallway and stuff. And yeah, we played that way for the first session or two over Zoom with screen share and mostly theater of the mind, and that's how we began it. And then because I was on the the DM's Guild, they advertised Astral, which I think is now defunct, and that was their attempt at making a virtual tabletop, and it was clunky but free. And so I joined Astral, and we played on Astral a couple of times. Hey, I have Energy Punch. You don't have Energy Punch. So I played on Astral. We played on Astral, I don't know, 3 or 4 sessions, and then Foundry VTT launched in April of 2020. And I don't remember if I got the very last tail end of the beta or what, but we got into Foundry and we kind of never looked back. And we've been playing on Foundry VTT ever since. We used it to play 5th edition D&D for my entire Rome game, which lasted from the March, the spring of 2020, until November or so of 2022. And then the same group of players played a short D&D game set in the Critical Role world, run by one of the other GMs. Oh, my best friend also ran for about 6 months in the middle of it. And then in I guess May or so of last year, 2023, we switched to Deadlands, which is a Savage Worlds setting, and we've been playing Savage Worlds Deadlands ever since. So we played Coffin Rock, which is a Deadlands Reloaded adventure, but I converted it to the Weird West, and now we're playing the Blood Drive campaign, and we're getting like sort of toward the end of it. So we played our D&D game from level 1 to level 13, completely frustrating my best friend who wants to play to level 20. He likes to get to the high level game. He doesn't mind starting at low level, but he wants to get to the high level game and play the high level game. Meanwhile, I really don't like running the high level game because I find it very hard to deal with. You have to the way things scale in D&D, and I think I mentioned this, it scales so much more rapidly, more multiplicatively than say City of Heroes does, and City of Heroes is more multiplicative than Champions, it just becomes insane, right? Your first level D&D character has 8, 9 hit points. Your 10th level D&D character, depending on class, might have 80 or 90 hit points, and your 20th level character might have 170 hit points. Whereas in Champions, your beginning 200-point character might have 40 stun, and a 500-point character might only have 60 or 70 stun, right? It's not like you're walking around with 6,000 stun, right? It just doesn't. Champions doesn't work that way. And so I found high-level D&D very hard to run, and we're going to now talk to her husband, Ken Kellerman, Mrs. Kellerman's husband. And so anyway, we had a new player I call the new girl, and she started out, playing level 1. And then when my best friend took over, we started again at level 2, I think. And when the other guy took over, we started at level 1. And then in Savage Worlds, both time we started at novice, right? First advance, 0th advance, new characters. And so this has frustrated my best friend because the highest we've gotten is level 13 in my campaign. We've never gotten above that. We did Coffin Rock. That was supposed to be temporary. We got to the 5th advance, which is equivalent about level 5, right? The second advance into the novice, the seasoned rank, right? They hit seasoned at advance 4, and so they got one more into 5th advance. And they're about there now. They're going to hit their 5th advance in my Blood Drive game when they get to the town of Dirtwater, at which point I said, okay, we're going to have to make a decision. Do you guys want to continue, finish the last couple of chapters of Blood Drive with these characters? Do you want to bring the old characters back and play them instead? Do you want to mix the posses with a couple of people from each group? Do you want to start a whole new posse over again? What would you like to do? Maybe even play another game. And so my best friend was like, well, I definitely don't want to start over because I don't want to start at level 1 again, right? It's just we never get anywhere. And part of the problem with this group is that we only play every other week, so it takes a really long time to get anywhere when you only play every other week. And an additional problem is that the woman in Finland, who actually joined the party later on, she is on a totally different time zone from us, obviously, because the rest of us are in North America, and she has to stop by 1:30 to put her kid to bed or whatever at Finland time. And so we were playing from 11 to 2. Now she switched it, and we were playing from 10:30 to 1:30. But she has to stop it. She can't go half an hour extra or something like that. So we often stop in the middle of battles, which affects the battles a lot, because then in the middle of a battle you're refreshing bennies. But I feel like it's not fair not to refresh the bennies, so it's very awkward. What you really should do is finish the battle, right? And so I don't want to say let's not continue, right? We this last session, they started fighting these devil bats, and it was just 1 o'clock, and I knew they were going to fight the devil bats, and I was like, well, I could throw in some sort of generic role play or something in here, or just say let's stop until next time. But now we've only played 2.5 hours, and we're not going to play again for 3 weeks because one of the players can't play 2 weeks from now. And so if we're only doing 2.5 hours, we're never going to get anything done. So part of the problem my best friend is having is that we can't play 4 or 5 hour sessions. We can't play every week. If we did that, heck, they'd already be on their 10th advance. We'd be long finished with Blood Drive and halfway through the next campaign. But unfortunately, the realities of our group just don't let us do that. And so anyway, he said, I definitely don't want to start at level 1 again. And so I said, well, there are mechanics in Savage Worlds. It's pretty easy, actually, to just say we're going to start seasoned or we're going to start veteran. And there's they tell you how to do it. It's no problem. In fact, if they wanted to start veteran, I might actually consider getting the Legend of Ghost Mountain. One of the reasons I never wanted to do that, one of the things I don't like about the Legend of Ghost Mountain is that you start out veteran. And I like starting at the beginning, right? But if the players are like, well, we don't want to just keep starting at novice and never getting higher level, I could say, well, let's play Legend of Ghost Mountain. It's a martial arts wushu kind of deal. And this guy's slowing us down, by the way. I should have fought him first. I should have stunned him right out of the gate instead of the martial artist, because the martial artist was no real threat to us, but this guy's slowing us down. So live and learn. I haven't fought the crane in a while, so kind of forgot about that. Anyway, so he wants to do the higher level stuff, and the new girl said, well, I actually prefer the lower level stuff because the higher level stuff, it's not as challenging, right? Now, I agree with her. When your character in D&D has 250 hit points and you're 21 armor class and you can like easily make saving throws and stuff like that, yeah, it's hard to challenge the characters. And if you look, for instance, on D&D Beyond, you can see this very easily. Go to D&D Beyond and do a search for monsters and see how many pages of monsters it gives you, right? Then narrow the search to monsters over a challenge level of 17, which is for level 17 and up PCs. And you'll find it goes from like 200 pages or whatever monsters, I'm making that number up, but it's a big number, to like 3 pages. There were a few demons, some dragons, a handful of other creatures, right? There really aren't that many options for the GM. One of the problems I had with Rome was, other than dragons, most of the high challenge rating monsters were not appropriate for the story we were telling at the time. And you could say, well, tell a different story. Well, it didn't occur to me when I was making the low-level stuff that the story I had created was not going to let me use high CR monsters. I didn't think to look at that. This didn't even occur to me. And so, and I know that the higher level stuff wasn't that challenging. But it wasn't just the high level stuff. This player said that when they got to like level 6 or 7, once the cleric got the ability to revivify them, basically at will, right? They had tons of, they bought enough diamonds or whatever it is that you have to use to revivify people. They bought enough to revivify like 3 or 4 people. And he just had the diamonds on him, and he could, as long as the cleric didn't go down, nobody could really die. And she said she kind of didn't like that because it reduced the tension. It made it feel less dangerous because she knew that the cleric could always revive them, right? And so she liked the lower level stuff where a single hit could take you out and you have to be very careful and that sort of thing, as opposed to the higher level game where they could just run into a room with impunity, cast AoE slow on the enemies, and then just mop up. Now, I didn't talk about the AoE slow with my best friend, but after she made this statement, he didn't say much. And then he messaged me privately and he said, look, I don't want to get into it with her, but she's just saying that because she's inexperienced. And I said, she's not inexperienced. She's been playing for 4 years. That's not an inexperienced player now. She's seen 3 different parties of D&D. She's seen 2 different posses in Deadlands. She's played a couple different games. She's watched a lot of the ETU show for the Saving Throw channel. She understands Savage Worlds actually better than he does. And so, yeah, she's not that inexperienced, and I kind of agree with her. And he said high-level stuff can be made challenging. I'm like, well, yeah, it can be, but it's harder to do than lower-level stuff. Right? And I said, I don't really want to be, like, I don't want the characters to be superheroes unless you're playing champions. And he said, but I thought you liked champions. I said, yes, champions is superheroes. City of Heroes is superheroes. I want this character to feel like a superhero. But I don't want my medieval knight to feel like a superhero. It's a different genre, right? You didn't have Gandalf just flying all over the world and blasting mountaintops into smithereens. It's not appropriate in a fantasy game. And this is Kent Kellerman. So I said, look, and I said to him, even when we used to play champions, you and I used to argue over, I wanted to start at 200 points, max of 250. He always wanted to start at 325 or something. We used to have a house rule before Champions 4th Edition came out when they actually set up how you could do the higher point things, right? By giving a higher base. We had a house rule that 300 was maximum. And if you go and look at his characters, his main characters that he played all the time, all of them started at 295. Literally, he gave his character that mine started at 250, 260, 240. He always started his character at the maximum. We'd say 70 active point max. He would hit that max right from the beginning. Always wanted to be really, really powerful, right? And I always preferred the more street level stuff. I've talked about this here as well. And so, and one of the things I don't like about the level 40 plus missions is this last set of story arcs is sort of the last ones I really enjoy. Just in general, there are still some good ones in the 40s, but a lot of the ones in the 40s are going through portals to save the cosmos. I like it a lot better when my character is just going into the keep outdoor to save Mrs. Kellerman. You know what I mean? I like that more down to earth story better. Um, and so anyway, we were talking about all of this, and in the middle of it, I guess he hadn't said anything to me, but I guess he's thought that the Savage Worlds Deadlands stuff is too easy. And he said to me, because I said I like to feel like the character could possibly die, and he said, well, it hasn't felt like the characters could possibly die in Deadlands at all with either posse. Now, I'm not sure why he said that, because his character actually should have died. He took 6 wounds. In Savage Worlds, the 4th wound puts you on the floor and you're dying. You have to make a vigor roll or you die. And it's a vigor roll at -3 because you have 3 wounds and each wound takes you a penalty. And his character only had D6 vigor at the time, I believe. So he's going to have to roll D6 -3 and beat a 4 not to die. And he was out of bennies, I believe. So he took 6 wounds, had no bennies, no way to soak wounds, no way to re-roll his vigor roll if he failed it. That character was dead. This is the one he's saying has never felt like he was going to die. However, one of the other players at the table in the Zoom had an adventure card because we play with the adventure deck. I don't give them out to everybody. What I do is when somebody if somebody agrees to recap the last session, I will offer them either an extra Benny or an adventure card, their choice. So there's one adventure card in play at the table per session. And this is a girl in Finland, in fact, and she just so happened to have an adventure card that says something like play to negate all damage to a single character. And she said, can I play this right now? And I said, yep. So she negated it. Right? But if that adventure card hadn't been there, his character died. So, yeah, I don't know why he doesn't think they've ever been in any danger of death. But I laughed at this, and I was telling this with one friend of mine. I said, well, he just said something to a GM that you never say, which is it hasn't felt like it's dangerous enough, and like we might die. Like, well, interesting. There's a really powerful enemy coming up at the end of this chapter. I guess his character is going to get attacked by this guy. Now, I'm not doing it to be mean, but like, hey, if you don't feel like it's ever been dangerous and you want it to feel more dangerous, I can accommodate you. It's a very easy way to do it. As a GM, I can use my GM bennies and the enemy's wildcard bennies to re-roll damage against your character until I get a higher number. Right? Then it'll feel like you might die. So anyway, I just thought it was really funny. I was telling this colleague of mine who doesn't play Deadlands with us, but he's playing the play-by-post. And I said, yeah, that's not a smart thing to say to your GM unless you actually want your character to risk death. I've been going pretty easy on them, and I guess he feels like it's been too easy. But it's absolutely not the case that Savage Worlds characters don't risk death. They risk death every single time somebody attacks. I roll in the open, and the only reason nobody's died is because they've gotten lucky. Because all you got to do is open end, right? Explode on the dice a couple of times in a row. And there's no way to soak the damage and you're going to die. So, we'll see what happens in the next session. But his character has a hindrance that I almost never bring into play called, oh gosh, what is it called? Trouble Magnet. And what it's supposed to mean is, like, if the enemies have no particular reason to attack anyone, instead of doing a random roll like you'd normally do as a GM, nope, it goes to this guy. And I have only done it once or twice. Like, there was a robot, an automaton with a Gatling gun, and I said to him, well, your character's a trouble magnet, so I guess it's going to shoot you. That was 2 sessions ago. I think I did, there was one other thing where there was a zombie, and it could have attacked anybody, and it went for him, again, because he's a trouble magnet. But like, okay, well, the Golem that you're about to face, which has a 14 toughness and can take 5 wounds, and does D12 plus 1 plus D6 of damage, which is massive in Savage Worlds. Yeah, I think the Golem's going to attack his character. And we'll see if he's not risking death. And I think if the Golem misses, I'm going to use a Benny to re-roll it. And if I think the Golem does, I think if the Golem does crappy damage, I'm going to use a Benny to re-roll it. And again, this isn't to be mean or try to kill his character off, but if he's going to complain that, well, we're not risking death in this campaign and it hasn't been really challenging anyway, then all right, I'll up the challenge level. Now, that doesn't mean that anybody else necessarily wants to have their character be more challenged, and I don't know what the other players would say about the challenge level. So I'm glad he's a trouble magnet, because it gives me a good reason to, you know, have his character be the one that I'm rolling bennies against. Right? Again, I'm not going to try to kill his character. I'm not going to have the Golem bypass 3 or 4 other heroes to go after his character. But if it has no reason to attack anybody else, and if it wants to attack him and it rolls a miss, yeah, I'm probably going to use some bennies to re-roll. And I pretty much have laid off of that. I do it a little bit, but I've ended most sessions with at least half my bennies, right? I've got 4 bennies because there are 4 players, and I've ended most sessions with 2 bennies still unused, because I just don't bother to use them against the players. But you want me to roll bennies against you, I can do it. It'll definitely make it harder. So anyway, I just thought that was an interesting little moment, and I would advise all of you, be careful what you wish for, right? Because if you're going to say to the GM, it's not challenging enough, I want it to be more challenging, well, the way I make it more challenging is use bennies against your character. Upgrade extras to wildcards. They used to do this on the wildcard show. The audience could donate tips to them during play to unlock reward tiers, and one of the reward tiers many times was a dangerous upgrade or something like that, and it would upgrade one of the extras to a wild card, which allows them to roll an extra die on everything they do, to every trait roll, and allows them to survive 3 wounds instead of 1 wound. And it gives them bennies, which they can use to soak wounds and stuff. So normally, I use the creature's bennies to soak wounds for it, and then my own GM bennies, if I want to use them, I'll use them to re-roll attacks and damage rolls. But I tend not to do that too much, because it makes it feel like, you know, you're a bloodthirsty GM trying to take out the players and the player characters. And so I do it, but I don't do it a lot, right? I don't like really try to do it, but I guess I've been too easy on them, because they do have a healer. By the way, the healer was almost killed once too, I think. So I'm not sure why. I think maybe he doesn't remember, but I'm not sure why my best friend said, oh, they're not risking death, because they absolutely have, and way more than our D&D group did. They never risked death at all. Right? Because in D&D, you go down incapacitated, you're making death saves, but somebody could just feed you a healing potion and you wake back up. There aren't any healing potions in Deadlands. Well, there are elixirs, and I think they ordered one from Smith and Robards, but they haven't gotten hold of it yet. And I purposely told them, I gave them the ability to order from the catalog, and I told them, you know, you can have it be in Dirtwater for you, which is the town that's their destination. And the reason I said that was I half think when we get to Dirtwater we're going to end the blood drive. And assuming we do that, then yeah, they'll get all the stuff they ordered, but they won't actually be using it. So I don't know how much, if at all, they're going to use these elixirs. But anyway, I just thought that was a fun little moment in our campaign with a player saying, "Oh, we haven't risked death. It's been too easy." Okay, I can accommodate that. All right. So Philippa Moreau says, "The police are going to keep Tracy Templeton in protective custody for now, but I'm afraid she's still having a hard time getting back to her normal life." Um, and same thing happened to the public records of Tracy. Oh, so her public records have been erased, and so is Kimberly Kellerman, who's Tracy's sister. They're trying to figure out what's going on, and of course, it's because the evil Cray Corporation, which is basically Microsoft, is erasing the history of these people because they're going to make them disappear, and they're going to try to brainwash them and stuff. Because it's Cray, and they're evil, just like Microsoft is. But I think that's enough for tonight, guys. I hope you have enjoyed. I do want to make a program note or whatever you want to call it. Everything seems okay now, but earlier today I was on YouTube, and it was weird just in YouTube when it shows you a bunch of potential videos you might want to watch. When I moved my mouse around, I got these weird black squares in the middle of my screen, like a scatter shot of black squares in the window. I thought, okay, what's going on with YouTube? Then I logged into City of Heroes a little while later, and I was getting these scatter shot of gray squares, like these square pixelated things all across the screen. Now I did a quick recording. It didn't record anything, so I thought that might mean there's a monitor issue, might mean there's a graphics card issue, might mean there's a cable issue. I updated the video drivers and rebooted the machine. Knock on wood, cross fingers, so far everything looks okay. But it's possible that I might be heading into a potential graphics card or monitor or whatever issue. And if that happens, there may be some delays in the upcoming episodes being released until I get that squared away. I just don't know yet. Right now, everything looks okay. Keep your fingers crossed. And hopefully, I'll be back making more episodes as normal, and you won't notice any interruption at all. But if there is an interruption, that may be why. So just keep that in mind. And with that, I think we'll end for tonight. I hope you enjoyed. I certainly did. And until next time, I am Scrapperlock, and this has been City of Heroes.